governor yesterday held a press conference to further defend himself, justify his action, and justify the losses. Have you listened? Are you impressed? Does that answer the questions in your mind?
Thank you very much, Sana, and good morning to you and the cherished listeners. To be fair, what the Bank of Ghana's governor said yesterday is not only clearly contradictory to the press release that was we discussed a couple of weeks ago, but actually raises even more questions than answers. Because if you read the two statements, and I have taken my time to look at his press conference release yesterday and the previous statement, there's only one sentence that has been copied over. And except for that, there's a complete contradiction. And Sana, I'll invite your readers, those who have got access, to look at the two documents closely. In the main, if you look at what Governor Addison said yesterday, he was back to singing the same mantra as this government of blaming the whole Bank of Ghana loss on the Ukraine and Russia war and on COVID-19. However, if you look very closely at the very statement that was initially raised, and that statement rhymes with reality, you will find that there was not a single mention of Ukraine or Russia in the statement that they had issued earlier on. And so the question you'll be asking is, what he came up yesterday, was this a rash afterthought to save his own skin? Was this another mark of simply going down with his political masters and repeating the same? Let me give you an example. If you read the second paragraph in the press statement, press release that they had issued when this whole loss came in. In fact, I start from the second paragraph of the second sentence of the first paragraph. It says that the financial statements reported a total loss of 60 billion, which has since become a matter of unfortunate politicization. Now, the next sentence is, it is noteworthy that 53.1 billion of those losses were a direct result of the government's domestic debt restructuring exercise phases 1 and 2. So clearly, in the very first paragraph, last sentence, he attributed the loss squarely to the domestic debt exchange program. Now you go and read what Addison released yesterday. He seeks to go back to indicate that the losses go as far back as 1992, and that some of the losses come from transactions in 2019 to 2015. So first and foremost, the question is, was the statement they issued the first time factually correct, or is what he's saying now factually correct? So you see why I say that there's a lot of politics he has put into this, unfortunately. Because you cannot, in the one breath, be clear that 53.1 billion of this 60 billion loss comes directly from the domestic debt exchange program. The remaining amounts he attributed to about 5 billion to forex losses. In other words, the depreciation of the cedi has led to that. And then there's an element for the cocoa bills program, making up the total of 60 billion. Now, suddenly, this man has started going back and saying that part of this loss comes from 2013 to 2015, and some of the debt written off goes as far back as 1992, 1999. Senna, how is it? And this is a very simple logical question. As an accountant, if I come to audit you and I'm auditing you, I look at financial year on financial year. So the 60 billion loss that was reported is for the year 2022. It's for income and expenditure reflected in the period January to December of that year, if that is their financial year. It has nothing to do with 2015 or 2016 or 1999 or 1992. If you go back to the financial records of Bank of Ghana, you will see the accounts on 1999 or 1992 for 2013, 14, and 15. So how is it possible that somebody will come and tell you that the losses I am making this year are losses that were there in 2015 or 2013? It tells you how much he's living in what we call cloud cuckoo land. It just doesn't add up, and it does not make sense. I mean, anyone with a basic appreciation of accounting, financial reporting, or audit knows this as very basic. You report your income, your expenses, therefore giving your losses or your profits in a particular fiscal year, not coming back or across. Now, in any case, the other contradictory element, he himself says that in 2017, they made a profit. 2018, they made a profit. 2019, they made a profit. 2020, they made a profit. 2021, they made a profit. Then 2022, they made a loss. So if he is now telling me that the 2022 loss, part of it is accounted for between 2013 to 2015. In other words, trying to rope in President Mahama. Where were those losses parked? Where were those losses parked when we were making profits from 2013 all the way to 2021? You see where it doesn't make sense from a very simple financial perspective. You cannot pack your losses and then release them at a particular point. So that is one key thing that we need to look at there. So first, the two things that contradict here are the immediate mention of Ukraine, Russia, and the fact that that statement in itself doesn't make sense. Now, to address this sudden appearance of Ukraine, Russia, and COVID stuff in there, you look at the second paragraph of the first statement they released, and I read it clearly. It says, it is important to put the Bank of Ghana's 2022 financial results in proper context with a clear statement of the problem that Ghana faced and the chronology of events in Ghana since 2019. The key word here is since 2019. Then they proceed. There was a clear mismatch between revenue inflows and expenditure finance in 2020 by the exceptional support from the IMF and the World Bank, and in addition to financing from the bank through the issuance of 10 billion COVID-19 bonds. Third paragraph, as a result, sovereign spreads on Ghana bonds widened, signaling investor dissatisfaction with the stance of fiscal policy. The budget for 2022, which was read in 2021, failed to address the fiscal concerns as the budget was even more expansionary by about 23% with a raft of revenue measures to raise finance. As a result, the credit rating agencies further downgraded Ghana's sovereign debt rating, which blocked Ghana's access to international capital market borrowing. Senna, you read this, and it is very clear, it is factual from a financial accounting perspective, it makes sense. But then suddenly, yesterday's statement starts attributing everything to Ukraine and Russia, to COVID, to so-called borrowing from Bank of Ghana by the government in 2013 to 2018. That for me is sad. When you have a technocrat like the Bank of Ghana governor coming to address us, they should stick to their monetary policy. They should stick to the factuals in the financial space. They should stop moving into these geopolitical tactics of Ukraine, Russia, and COVID-19 and all that kind of stuff. So I honestly don't believe that. And this is just from the perspective of their financial performance. I haven't even talked about their spurious $250 million venue, Senna.
But he said, and I think offering an explanation as to why these monies were spent, is that also an important aspect that we also have to examine why he had to do this? And if it is justified, say, oh, perhaps these losses are necessary to keep the economy afloat. Isn't that a consideration that we need to make?
Absolutely, Sana. They are necessary to help the economy be kept afloat. And so if the Bank of Ghana was doing what all other central banks did, which is be very prudential in how they lend to government so that they don't become the actual problem, then I have no concerns with that. The situation we have is this. And if you read his press conference from yesterday, one of the revealing things there is the fact that he admits that the government of Ghana had been borrowing 3 billion euros every single year to keep afloat. But as soon as we were locked out of the capital markets, what happened? It then appeared that Bank of Ghana became the ones who started giving government of Ghana that 3 billion. If you do the analysis, Senna, and you look at the fact that we were thrown out of the capital markets in October 2021, what it tells you, you watch from that period onwards, how much did they give to the Bank of Ghana? 80 billion Ghana cedis. By today's exchange rate, that is about $8 billion. So we simply swap the annual 3 billion a year from the IMF to now getting 4 billion a year from Bank of Ghana. Now, what has that done to us? They say, yes, it's their public mandate to keep our finances afloat. How afloat are our finances now? So now, as we speak, they have recorded losses of $6 billion. That's the 60 billion Ghana cedis, if you use the current exchange rate of 10 to the cedi. That loss is money from the government of Ghana that they are now seeking to write off. And the operations they have involved themselves in, including this loss, is what is contributing to the high levels of inflation we have here now. This is why they cannot fight inflation, because they have pumped this amount of money into the system. And so when they are talking about keeping the economy afloat, how is this economy afloat when you have pumped so much money, as much as 80 billion within two years, 45 billion in 1 year, 35 billion in another year, into an economy of our size, and thereby ending up stoking inflation, raising interest rates, which by raising interest rates, you are compounding government's debt problem. So in other words, what they have claimed to have done to keep us afloat is actually sinking us. They ended up driving us straight to the IMF. Because if you look at it from that angle, without their debt, our debt would have been more sustainable. Take the current debt that we have, about 570 billion. Remove that 80 billion that they had given us. That brings you down to 400 and something billion, roughly about 490 billion. That would have reduced the amount of interest that we were paying. In fact, he himself acknowledges that as a result of all this, our debt situation was now leading to a position where we're spending close to $3 billion in debt service charges alone. So I do not see how, given the Amanakpeteshisela, you come to me, you are already tipsy, and then you need more drink. And I give you more drink to make you more drunk and finish you off. And then I say, oh, I have helped you. Now you are drunk and you are broke. How did I help you? I should have been the one to say, I'm responsibly selling to you. So if you are tipsy, I'm no more giving you anymore. What you should do is cut your expenditure. And they admit it in their own first statement that there was a mismatch between government's revenue and expenditure. So instead of printing money for government to make up that bloated expenditure, it should have been government cutting back the expenditure, especially in the irrelevant expenditure item. So I do not believe that what they did was in the interest of our financial health.
So the results do not speak to his so-called good intentions for you?
Oh, absolutely. They say the road to hell is littered with what? Very good intentions. So those intentions themselves do not matter. What is important is what is the output. The fact that we are discussing it now, the fact that they have made a severe loss of 60 billion, unprecedented. Nobody has ever made a loss of even close to $1 billion at Bank of Ghana. They have made not 1, not 10, not 20, 60 billion, which is 6 billion. So now, put it in context. That 60 billion cedis is the equivalent of $6 billion. How much did we go to the IMF to borrow? 3 billion. So what it means is that if we had not lost this 60 billion, half of it would have been more than sufficient for us to stay afloat without going to the IMF. A lie. Because you just lost 6 billion and you are begging for 3 billion. So we would have been better off by 3 billion if they had not incurred this massive loss on our behalf. I don't know if it makes sense. It's as simple as that, Senna. If you go and throw away 6 billion and then go begging for 3 billion, did you go or did you come? And so if he talks about his intentions and the stabilization of the economy, did he help our economy by losing 6 billion of our money so that we can go and borrow 3 billion of what we lost?
But he said,
if we hadn't lost that, would have been 3 billion richer.
He said, what you're counting as a loss is what had to be done for the, at least the finance minister, to keep telling us that the medicine cabinets are not empty, for us to be able to still bring in goods that the Ghanaian needed, that it was their expenditure, the monies they spent, that they now have to write off, that has kept Ghana, at least for us not to feel, he claims that for us not to feel the crisis.
See, this is the twisted logic that sometimes I struggle to understand whether they know what they are saying or they are deliberately saying it. I am telling you that you are currently in a position where you have to go and borrow 3 billion. But that is because I had to lose 6 billion for you to put you in a position to go and borrow 3 billion. Why did you even lose that 6 billion? You see the logic there. If you have to lose 6 billion of my money to put me in a very glorified position where I now have to go and borrow 3 billion, what if I said, you know what, please don't save me with the 6 billion so that I don't need the 3 billion. I would have been 3 billion richer. Because if you take the 6 billion loss, right, if it hasn't been lost, 3 billion of it would have covered what the IMF is giving us now. And so when they talk about we have to administer, what they are basically telling us is that government of Ghana was so reckless in fiscal policy that they could not pay for the expenditure that they were generating. So all these 1D, 1F that they were giving to flash hotels, all these wasteful expenditure, all the COVID-19 funds, we don't know where they went. All the bank restructuring funds, that up 25 billion plus. You add the bank restructuring funds of 25 billion, the COVID-19 funds of 23 billion, add the two together, what do we get? We are looking at over 50 billion that we cannot find. If Bank of Ghana had not printed money to cover off such wasteful expenditure, government would have been forced not to incur them. And if government had not incurred them, it means that we would have balanced the books and would have been in a better position. Here is the case. The government was engaging in wasteful expenditure. Expenditure for which today we can't see the benefit. How many hospitals were built? How many clinics were built? How many schools were built? All that was happening was Yenchendi. Government was profligating in expenditure and Bank of Ghana was printing to meet it. How has that helped? When somebody is bankrupt, you don't give them more money to go and spend. What they should have done is got government to balance the books there, not keep funding government's profligate expenditure, which has landed us where we are. So I do not believe this whole story of they needed that money to import medicines and all that stuff. How much medicine has Bank of Ghana imported for us? In any case, if he's talking about the forex-related element, he says only 5 billion. When was the last time? Forget the good for oil policy and all those crap. How much of that 60 billion he's talking about was used to import medicine and for who? Because as far as we know, all the companies that imported pharmaceuticals, that imported oil, they paid for it themselves. Bank of Ghana did not pay for them. So he should explain to us, right, how it is that unless he's going to tell us that, oh, we imported oil or we imported medicine for 60 billion and we shared to Ghanaians, that's where the loss goes. That is not true. So all this is, if one will say, emotional, what do you call it, blackmail, trying to tell us that we have to make that loss for you to have your food, your medicine, and your fertilizer. The government of Ghana does not give food or medicine or fertilizer out for free. So it doesn't wash, Senna, and he knows it very well.
Well, is this also a difference? Because he's basically saying the IMF says, the first point, he insists on that central banks are not commercial banks, that the IMF feels that the BoG was policy solvent, that they have enough money to cover their monetary policy costs. In fact, they're saying what they have available is 50% of total liabilities. What do you say to that?
Again, these are excuses, right? These are clear excuses. The simple question is, they are policy solvent. Policy solvent. What exactly is he trying to talk about? If he's policy solvent, how come that he is not able to tackle one of the core mandates of the Bank of Ghana, which is bringing inflation down? If you are policy solvent, it technically means you have all the tools in your bag to be able to tackle the mandate you are giving. So, Sana, if you go to a doctor or a doctor comes to your house with his medicine bag, and he is, if you like, in quotes, policy solvent, his medicine solvent, it means if you need paracetamol, he has got that paracetamol. He'll give it to you there to cure your headache. If you need aspirin, he has got it. If he needs to check your temperature and other diagnosis, he's got his stethoscope. How does a doctor come into your house to treat you and tell you, my bag is full of all the things I have? Then you say, I've got headache, I need paracetamol, I don't have that one. Or the medicine he gives you actually makes your headache worse. Let us look at the impact of their policy interventions using their policy solvent status. Inflation is one of the core ones. What has happened to inflation? It went to 54% last year. That is policy solvent results. It came down to about 42% earlier in the year, and it's been going up gradually, right? Since April, it's gone up in April, gone up in May, gone up in June. Is that the fruits of the policy solvent Bank of Ghana? Let's take our, exchange rate. They started releasing the very, the little dollars we had as reserves. They were releasing them to fight inflation left, right, and center. But Sana, they ran out because if you look, they said they spent 500 million in the space of 2 months alone to counteract foreign the CD problem. You release more dollars into the system so that you calm the rate at which the dollar price is rising. That's 60 billion that they lost. You tell me the impact that that 60 billion could have had on reducing the depreciation of the city. So you don't come and tell me that I'm policy solvent when the very policies you should be enforcing, you cannot say you've achieved your target. What is your inflation target? 8%. What is the current inflation? 42%. What is the percentage? 8 times 5 is what? 40. If my math is still correct. So they have missed their target by as much as what? 500%. And he's here talking about policy solvent. Let us look at the book not by the cover, but by the contents. In any case, nobody is complaining about policy solvency. We are complaining about the reckless loss you have saddled us with. And as for the thing of IMF said we can do it, that is the most reckless talk I can talk about. Is IMF running the Bank of Ghana? He used to work with IMF, so he should know better. You don't come and tell us that IMF told us that we can lend government of Ghana. That is not true. Because the amount of money they were giving to government of Ghana, they were not even declaring. Because when IMF came and looked at all the debts, the IMF said, you are not debt sustainable. And he himself admits in his statement that government of Ghana tried to reduce our debt to GDP ratio from 105%, 105% to 55%. They went through domestic debt exchange program. It failed. And the only way they could bring that debt down to the sustainable level where the IMF will accept it was by getting Bank of Ghana to give that 50% haircut on the money that government of Ghana owes it. So this IMF did not get in until government of Ghana's domestic debt exchange program failed. So on the one breath, you say we have to cut it so that the government of Ghana will be at the right size for IMF to what? Lend to it.
Okay.
On the other breath, you say IMF asked us to lend to government of Ghana. Which is which?
Conrad, please, if you won't mind,
yes, sir.
Kindly hold on for me because I would like to take your views on the matter of the headquarters, corporate headquarters.
Yes, sir.
Please hold on for me.
Okay.
Let me have a quick conversation with Professor John Gatsi, who is Dean of the UCC Business School. Thank you very much for your time, Prof, and good morning to you.
Good morning.
I hope you're well, Prof.
Yes, by the grace of
God. I know we've had this conversation when this initially started. The Bank of Ghana's position, they have had to do another presser in response to the issues. Has he said anything new for you that is stronger than the earlier statement is issued?
Yes and no. Yes, because the governor has actually indicated that they are not set up to make profit. So if you don't see profit, don't worry at all. But the new breath for the discussion is that while he said don't worry about profit, he is now telling us that the profit they made 2019, 2020, and 2021, those are the profit that they have allocated to financing the new building. So if profit is not desirable for the central bank, how will they be financing the new building? How will they be financing the operation? So I think the central bank is just finding it comfortable to explain things out. But the more they do that, they anger the public. Nobody is saying that you cannot make a loss. You can make a loss with explanation that goes down well with your stakeholders. But as we speak, the explanation do not go down well with us. We do not believe that 1 year you can make such a colossal amount of losses and still be, for want of a better word, so insistent on the wrong that is apparent in the Bank of Ghana. So I think he has made it clear that they love profit, they like profit, and profit has actually made them to finance the new building. So that is a new aspect. The second aspect that is new is that they are saying the losses that they have incurred is a technical loss. But I just want to explain to the central bank that it's nothing like technical loss. If you use IFRS 9 and 7, that focus on interest income and financial instruments. If there is a gain in the financial instrument, it's credited to you. If there's a loss in the financial instrument, it's credited to hit your books. So the losses that they are made, they are real losses, and that cannot be wished away with the introduction of the term technical losses. So these are the two things that are new for me that the central bank has indicated. Apart from that, all other things are just old discussion that he has reintroduced. And I believe that is not in the interest of the central bank. For the central bank has been in the news for well over a month. And that is the doing of the government, because they believe that they have the protection of tenure, and then they have the protection of government machinery speaking for them. So they have nothing to fear. They can come and tell us anything that comes into their mind.
In fact, he goes as far back as the structural adjustment and mentions monies that have been advanced to Cocoa Board and the government in the past. In fact, he claims that the loss that we are seeing is the total cost of economic and financial crisis that Ghana has suffered over the years.
It's just telling. It's not just telling the truth. What we are talking about, you see, audit report is superior to the statement of the Bank of Ghana governor in relation to the losses and the impairments that have happened. The purpose of audit is to ascertain to stakeholders whether or not the managers have managed the institution well, they have applied the accounting policy rightly, and things that they have been done in the interest of the institution that will inure to the benefit of the institution. So when audit reports come out, they give opportunity to those who are the preparers of the audit of the financial report, such as the governor, his deputies, and the directors of the bank, to make comments. Their comments could not erase what the audit report has actually highlighted. The audit report highlighted that their assets is less than their liabilities. The audit report highlighted that they have a negative, equity. Their audit report highlighted that there is fear that the going concern of the Bank of Ghana is intact. There is fear that the Bank of Ghana will be operationally efficient. So these are the things captured in the audit report, and the Bank of Ghana governor cannot wish away that is the status of the Bank of Ghana as we speak, and those are the things that we should be discussing.
Is it enough that he says, by the IMF's assessment, they are still policy solvent?
Please, I would not allow you to continue. IMF is not the authority that is managing the economy. Read our constitution and see whether you see IMF inside. No. Read our various acts and see whether you see IMF holding those institutions. We are also wise. We are also educated. We know what financial statement means to institutions. We know what the Bank of Ghana is doing there. And we know that the single most important reason why we are in this mess, the Bank of Ghana is not showing fidelity to the law. And that is why we are in this mess. Bank of Ghana was financing government activities without recourse to respecting its authority as a lender of last resort. So, as we speak now, Bank of Ghana cannot establish a stability fund of 15 billion Ghana cedis to support the bank. So why is the lender of last resort of the Bank of Ghana? That has not been respected professionally. So it is as a result of losing that independence. So that is the cause of Bank of Ghana this thing. So we don't need the IMF to come. IMF wants a certain mark before they can come and lend to us. And that caused further the mess. So are you expecting the IMF to come and say that Bank of Ghana didn't do right? No. So forget about IMF.
And listening to you just speak about whether or not it's acted within applicable laws, he is of the opinion that he's not broken any law. I'm sure you listened to his interpretation of the act and how he needs to report to the finance minister for the finance minister to report to Parliament. Is that your understanding of what he was supposed to do?
Please, the point is that Parliament doesn't have record of those reports. Therefore, they have not complied. And some of the compliance should be precedent over action. For example, the law says that when you are in difficulties, put together the governor, the finance minister, and the controller and accountant general. Now determine what you think to be feasible to help you cater for enhanced financing of government activities in a crisis. Then within 7 days, go to Parliament and report the same for Parliament to give you approval. Was it done? Was it done? So we are talking about very practical things. So if you are there saying that in your opinion is so and so, you have not acted, you have not shown fidelity to the law, and you have not also shown professional guidance with regard to the lender of last resort, which you are. So now you cannot lend to any bank. Now you yourself, you need, recapitalization. Is that the prudent thing to do? Why is the IMF asking the Bank of Ghana and the government to pass a law to indicate that there shall be zero lending to government, when we know that we established a Bank of Ghana as an entity as it is once a while provide support to government activities, and then the Bank of Ghana is now acting. So the IMF is acting that clear that law. This thing. Which bank in developing country will you see not financing some level of activities of its government? It's only because we go overboard, and we go overboard with impunity. That is the reason why they are doing that. And they know that that is the single most important solution to our problem.
Is there enough cause for him to go, followed by his deputies?
Is there?
Is there enough cause for him to go?
Well, I don't want to talk about that, because if we talk about that, it doesn't tickle them. But in a refined economy, a civilized economy, this is enough for the governor to say bye-bye. This is enough for the deputies to say bye-bye. Because the work is structured in such a way, certain activities of the bank are actually under the purview of the deputy governor. So this is the time for them to assess themselves, look at their conscience, and say bye-bye. But because of the integrated nature of politics, integrated nature of lack of independence, so somebody thinks that because I'm appointed by the president, I must act in the interest of the party and the government. No, that's not how independence works. And that is the reason why the bank directors and then the governors are protected by the law. So it becomes very difficult for you to remove them.
Ghana's gold.
So I believe they can only resign by conscience, but they cannot be removed by any demonstration in the rest.
Prof, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Yeah. Sure.
Professor John Gatsi, always a pleasure speaking to him. Dean, University of Cape Coast Business School. Conrad is still with us. Conrad, the question of whether there is enough cause for him and his deputies to go, what do you say?
More than enough, my brother, because I think that in the spirit of Japanese samurais, when you fail, you should be prepared to fall on your sword. Clearly, the Bank of Ghana has failed in its mandate to tame inflation. It has failed in its mandate on monetary policy. It has lost the government more than it has saved us. In fact, if you go by their 6 billion loss, they are technically single-handedly responsible for the 3 billion we are borrowing from the IMF by losing us 6 billion in the space of 2 years. So he's run out of ideas. He's not fit for purpose. He should do the honorable thing and step aside. And this is just on the policy side, not even talking of the other reckless decisions.
Then there is the matter of the head office. In fact, I'm sure you've seen the documents that have been put forward by Honorable Kujato Ablakwa. You are seeing yes. the Bank of Ghana's defense. What do you think?
I think when a fish is rotten at the head, you have no choice than to throw it away. You don't even think about using it for more money. At the end of the day, the point here is this. You follow the trajectory or the history of how that transaction was entered into, and you look at the fact that the Bank of Ghana should be a beacon of financial prudence. They should not be breaching any financial or procurement laws. And you even look at the end game, the output, how an initially $81 million project within the space of a few years has morphed into $250 million. More than 3 times. And you find out if this is the best the Bank of Ghana can do, then what do you expect of our commercial banks on the high streets or any other government entity? These are supposed to be professionals. Bank of Ghana should not be staffed by party functionaries, but by people who are competent and know what they are doing. But you have a situation where they have entered into a bad sole source contract, even with entities that are not legally registered. How do you sign a contract with an entity that is not a legal entity 3 months before they get their legal entity status? And to make matters worse, to add insult to injury, Sana, they then claim that they are fully funding this Bank of Ghana bill from the 2019, 2020, and 2021 profits that they made. And it's good that Professor John Gatsi made it clear that if they are berating the importance of losses or profits, how come they are using that profit to, if you like, fund this project? But the most important point for me here is this. We, in their own report, by its own admission, by 2020, we were in dire straits. They lent about 10 billion to government of Ghana under the COVID program, the COVID bonds. So by 2020, we knew that the country was in a crisis. In 2021, we were in a full-blown crisis. We were locked out of the capital market in September 2021. And through all of that, as governor of Bank of Ghana, we would have expected that all his forecasts would have said that government needs more money. So look at the extra money he threw out. And so whatever profit he made, he should have held onto it and kept it for the rainy day. But what did he do? He went out and splurged it on a new headquarters, which then moved from $80 million straight to 250. So this in itself, this singular decision tells me that we do not have a governor of Bank of Ghana or a board at the Bank of Ghana that has the foresight to read the weather, the financial weather, and understand that the country is broke. The country is in dire straits. Therefore, at this stage, we do not have the luxury of building other headquarters where we already have a place we are operating from. You yourself have said that this project dates back to the 2000s. So why can't it wait till after the crisis? Why is it that during the crisis, we are allocating our precious $250 million, which is the equivalent of over 2.5 billion Ghana cedis, right, to a mere headquarters? So if you add that to it, it creates a crisis of trust, a crisis of concern, and clearly it makes the Bank of Ghana clearly unfit for purpose at this stage. And the board, the governor and his deputies, they should all do the right thing and vacate their premises. They have no business sitting there, losing us money and wastefully blowing up this much money when we are in a crisis, Senna. Think about how much $250 million, 2.5 billion, how many schools, how many hospitals would that have built? How many workers' benefits would that have catered for? So I think that that is another of the very reckless things that he's done. And I don't see him being penitent on it. You see his right up, he's trying to justify it. But he's digging himself into a worse pit. And for Christ, they should go. They shouldn't even wait for the minority to demand for him to go. They should do the right thing and go.
Conrad, thank you. Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure having a conversation with Conrad Dumbah, who is a financial analyst based in the UK on this issue of the Bank of Ghana. Lawyer, then I'll take a break.